speaking of the fan films then, any scrapped or unused ideas?
I always thought that it'd be cool to do the Sinister Six. We wanted people to want more.
You said it's the final one. Have you spoke to Cameron about maybe revisiting at some point in the future?
That's a tough one.
Today I bring you a very special video and the first official episode for the return of the LewisFilms Podcast. We have a very special guest on this first episode and you guys are going to absolutely love the chat and sit down I got to have with them. So make sure to give the video a like, subscribe to the channel, it really helps us out. Let me know in the comments below guests that you'd love to have on the podcast in the future, and enjoy the episode. Hello everyone, welcome back to the LewisFilms Podcast. It has been a while since we did an episode, but we are back, hopefully with regular episodes. And today I have a very special guest with over 500,000 YouTube subscribers, being one of his many accolades, alongside becoming the first teenager in streaming history to land a comedy special, to featuring on commercials and television across the United States. I bring you actor, comedian, and Spider-Man fan film sensation. It is Mr. Mark Ricci. Welcome.
That's me. I thought you were gonna say like actor, comedian, and Spider-Man.
Oh, and Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I should just introduce you as Spider-Man.
Hey, it's a multiverse, right?
Yeah, right.
You can all wear the mask.
Are you in Beyond the Spider-Verse? First question. Sorry, we're going straight in there.
I wish.
Imagine.
I wish, dude. Yeah, I'm curious to see what they do. I got to talk to Shameik Moore a little bit at the Madam Web premiere. Yeah, he was there. He really wants to be live action Miles.
I've heard him in interviews saying he'd like train up and he's ready to sort of take that on.
But I feel like they should cast him maybe as like the dad.
How old is he now?
But he's like, I think he's probably like pushing 30, if not in his 30s. So like by the time they eventually like do it, he's gonna be like mid 30s, close to 40. So I think you're gonna want to cast like a 17-year-old, right? It's Miles,
probably.
So yeah.
But anyway,
I'm glad to be here, dude.
Lovely. I mean,
been watching your stuff for a while. Yeah, of course.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
No, I love that, and honestly, I think a lot of people will share the same opinion. I think you guys have the best Spider-Man fan film series on YouTube. I just like no glazing, just truth. I mean, it is just truth. No, seriously, I think a lot of fans will share the same opinion. You guys have been going for so long, but I'd love to know, and I think a few of the fans who are watching this, who maybe haven't seen your content before or your channel or whatever, maybe they don't even know that you've played Spider-Man. Just, I mean, give us a little bit of an insight to you, your like career.
I feel like we live in a bubble as like the fan film community, like Spider-Man fan community. We're definitely in a bubble. So, yeah, it's like we're definitely not like mainstream by any means, but it's cool to hear that from you guys and like the community. It's a reminder that it's like, oh, like, you know, like all that hard work, like it was worth it, and you know, like people enjoy it, and hopefully they enjoy it in the future and stuff. And so yeah, that's great to hear.
No, 100%. I've been watching since I was a kid. I remember Six Side before it was even got renamed to Six Side, and watching. I remember watching my grandparents at my grandparents' house, in my little red bedroom, watching Dawn of Spider-Man for the first time. I remember those days. Like I've been watching for a very long time.
Hey, me too. I remember discovering the channel as well before I came on board, and just feeling like, wow, these kids are like getting together and they're shooting and doing their thing. And I found it difficult to do that, find community in my childhood neighborhood. So a lot of my videos were like very independent and just like me and like playing multiple characters and stuff. And every once in a while, like I'd convince someone to do it, but like I was impressed at the camaraderie of it. And like then the behind the scenes of them saying like, you know, I'm gonna do a good job today, so hopefully I get a bonus. And I was like, what? Like he's paying them and all that. And so that was really cool. And then like I remember hearing like I don't know if this was like on camera or off, but like Costa, like the second Spider-Man actor on the channel, basically like did the movie for a pair of shoes,
Nice.
and just like all that passion behind it. Like, well, I mean, you could say passion from some people, and then just like he was probably, I think, maybe 14 or something, and he just wanted to, so it was like it was cool. Like then they shot it, and they had like stunt doubles and stuff, like when the actors wouldn't show up, and I was just subscribed and I would just watch it as a fan. And then they put out a casting call, and do you remember that? Because the video's not up anymore.
No, I don't. I don't remember the casting call.
It was like a week before the Avenging Spider-Man came out on their channel. They put out a casting call, and I was like, okay, well, there's no way that it's gonna be for Spider-Man, but like whatever, like submit. And I remember seeing like my phone number area code in the background of their video, so I knew that they lived like somewhat close to me. And then it just worked out that we started talking and stuff, and they were like, yeah, we're looking for a new Spider-Man. And I'm like, but the movie comes out in like a week. They're like, yeah, cost is done, we're getting someone new, we're gonna do a web show and all that. And then just being in like a little writer's room, if you will, of like passing different ideas and titles back and forth, because like they didn't know it was going to be called the Spider-Man Saga, so it was like all these reject titles that we were trying to come up with. And I think at one point, like, the idea was tossed around of like Doctor Doom in like a post-credit scene, or like just crazy.
Oh, that's crazy
stuff. And yeah, and it was a little bit far, the commute. I remember I was in summer school, so the first day of production I didn't even go, and they were like, it's okay, we'll get Mikey, who played the first Spider-Man, to be in the suit that day. And then yeah, like I was like literally like almost like Peter Parker juggling school with shooting, with being Spider-Man. And it was just so cool because I love, like many people, I loved Spider-Man. It's like my favorite superhero. So that was crazy. I'm sure we'll dive.
Yeah, of course. I mean, we'll get all into that, but that's that's really nice to hear. Like, sort of how you. I mean, it's quite nice to hear that you lived close, and that's sort of how you realized that you could sort of work with them, which I think is like really cool.
And my parents put up with a lot because I wasn't driving yet, so they had to drive like sometimes close to an hour every time, and then I'd get picked up at a certain time, and it's like, we're not done the scenes yet, like just give us like 30 minutes, and then it always goes over, so they were annoyed and stuff. And then I remember they were like, okay, get the project done, and then that's it. You got high school to finish and all that, and then that was it. Like, I was done at the time. I thought it was just like a cool summer project. Yeah.
Oh, no way. That's mad. And I'm sure we'll dive more into that. But I mean, I guess on your parents' case, I guess you could just say, "Oh, I'm Spider-Man, so it's okay."
And my girlfriend too was like, "Okay, this is taking up too much of your time." Like, I remember like her and my mom like just like ganging up and saying like, "Okay, like you got other things to focus on and stuff, got college in a year and all that." So like, yeah, I thought I was done.
Wow. Okay. I mean, that's really interesting. When it comes to like your other stuff, though, apart from sort of Spider-Man, that sounds like it was very earlier on in like. I mean, how long is I go with the Spider-Man saga now? I mean, that was
9 years.
9 years? Is it really that long? Damn.
It's gonna be 10 years in the summer.
I didn't even realize it was that long ago.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that's crazy.
Well, in the universe, it's only been, let's see. From the saga takes place in 2015, or Balance Act, and then Final Swing, Vengeance, Rise of a Legacy, and Final Swing, I think all take place in like 2016. Final Swing goes a little bit into 2017. So we're not even fully caught up with real life.
That's crazy. It does.
That's
commencement why is commencement 2014?
Commencement would be. I'm trying to think, because I think if I remember correctly, commencement is maybe like half a year or a year. Yeah, it's around like 2014, and he's been. I mean, like Cameron can fact check me on this. He's been Spider-Man for a year at that point. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
like with the homemade suit and everything, because we don't show the origin of the spider bite, but like I think it could be 2013. I should
Mm.
have been prepared. I can't
That
remember now, but
that's one you might have to check with Cameron, but
yeah, yeah.
yeah. No,
But
that's
yeah,
really
because
cool.
you have to think about like the Uncle Ben and all that. Like when did
Mm.
that?
Yeah.
But
You
I
have to
know
think,
that
yeah.
once we go into the saga, our first one, Cameron and the other writer at the time really wanted it to be, you know, dive right in, no more origin story, which makes sense. I mean, the movies had the same thing. They were just like everyone knows.
Mm.
So they're like, okay, we're 2 years into Spider-Man's career now. Kind of like the Batman, actually. The Batman's also 2 years into his career.
Yeah, yeah. It's I think there's a trend with superheroes as well. I mean, we see it with the movies. We're going to see it with this new Spider-Man show, so I completely understand that.
Oh
But
yeah.
yeah, no, like get into like sort of your other stuff though. Like for those people who don't know, they might know you as Spider-Man. Like what other stuff do you get up to? Like YouTube wise, acting wise. Obviously, we know you had the comedy special on Amazon, which is like insane. That's really cool. What other stuff are you
I
getting up to?
I remember like I had a couple friends in seventh grade that did YouTube iPod Touch reviews, and they it kind of like sparked something in me. But my parents and my neighbor were sort of like, "Oh, don't go on YouTube. It's like an invasion of privacy. If you do it, change your name to like Buzz Lightyear or something." It was like this thing, and I wanted to do it obviously, and eventually I just did it in seventh grade. I just did a collab with like the couple friends that had YouTube channels too, and I started doing like iPod reviews and like how to jailbreak your iPod and stuff like that. And then from there, started doing like just little skits and um, got into movie reviews and did that for a while. And the movie review community was like sort of the first community that I was really in on YouTube, and it was small and relatively small. And some of the big ones um, became aware of me, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever. And like Jeremy Johns one time commented on a video,
Oh no way,
and
that's cool.
and Chris Stuckman and Schmoes No, if you remember them.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and so I was like, they were like my idols at the time when it came to YouTube, and then kind of pivoted into reactions, like trailer reactions and that whole thing. And a lot of them got like a lot of views. So that was like a big trend at the time. And then kind of wanted to stop doing that. Um, and then all of a sudden I was in college. Well, I think we should backtrack a little bit. So I did like a little like Spider-Man parody kind of short film. And that's actually what Cameron saw. That was like, okay, we can trust him. Um,
Ah, okay.
but that was just a school project. So like 2014 and 2015, there's a couple like little short films on the channel that were just school projects that I uploaded to YouTube. And one of them's called like The Mega Meaning of Christmas, and the other one's called Mega Mark. Like they all had like the branding because my name was Mega Movie Man Mark. So like
Yeah.
even my school projects, I wanted to like have this synergy so that I could use my school projects on my channel, not waste my time on the school projects. Like I really only ever cared about YouTube. I was writing movie reviews in English class and like thinking about what I was gonna film on the way home and or when I get home and stuff like that. Um, so yeah, and then both of those short films that year from film class, because it was cool. They just started a film class when I was in high school, and then they got into like a local film festival for student films, and they were on the big screen, and that was a big moment. And I just knew that I one day like wanted to do more and more acting. And I was at a high school where they had a drama program, so every single day I was taking drama like for 4 years, and um, it was good. And it was a little bit of a learning curve of how to go from theater to film. It took me a while because I was like always like big and like theatrical and like playing to the audience, like learning everything or doing everything I've learned in the 4 years of high school. Um, and so I remember just like a few auditions when I got my agent at the end of the 4 years of high school, hearing feedback of like, oh, he's a little bit green and stuff like that. And I went to LA, um, started auditioning there, and it took me a while to really be like, oh my God, like even with the saga, like I would watch it back and I would be like, why am I looking like I'm a theater actor on stage? Like I really got to dial it down. And that was part of why I wanted to do Balance Act and sort of like kind of reshape the saga, because I thought that I was dissatisfied with my performance as Peter Parker. So because I my priorities were wrong. I was trying to score like the laugh, and I was trying to, like, I don't know, implement too much like comedy at this, which was at the detriment of the character. And so from then on, I started thinking about, oh, how do I put the character first, and bring to the character what I love about the character, and not just like, trying to make it like a comedy show or something. So that was a big change.
No, that's interesting, because I sort of see how you came at it like that. And Balance Act, I remember seeing the saga for the first time, and Balance Act, when I watched it, it definitely does. It sort of irons out some of the creases that maybe when you go back and you watch it and you think, okay, as a creator, whenever you watch back anything that you make, you sort of go back and you go, oh, I could have done that differently. This could have been, this shot could have been longer. This dialogue wasn't right. Maybe it's a bit more subtext I need to put in there, whatever. And you think as an actor, I imagine yourself as like, oh, I could go back and change this. And it's the difference is there with Balance Act. You watch Balance Act, and I personally, in my opinion, I think Balance Act definitely does add a lot more depth, I think, to the saga, which is great in its own right, which is amazing. I mean, the saga's already great as it is, but Balance Act does add that extra cherry on top, I think. So I totally understand where you're coming at.
Yeah, and then in a weird way, again, it was like solve some problems, create some new ones, because on the technical side, there was a lot to be desired with my version of Balance Act, because I was sound mixing for the first time and all this. It was like my own passion project. And then now that I've re-released the whole saga on my own channel, I went back and ironed out a lot of the technical sides of things and mixed it better. And who knows, I'll watch that again in 2 years and be like, oh, I could have done this better though. So it's like, it's just a constant thing of like trying to one up yourself, and like, oh, it's never good enough. And the fact that Balance Act has like the most technical issues out of all of them, but the most views, is like the most ironic thing. I don't know.
No, I 100% get that, because I'm exactly the same with like YouTube videos, just in particular, or not even like it's anything. Like I'm writing a script in the moment, and
oh, cool.
You watch, like, after a week you go back and reread it, and it's like, oh, this is like this whole scene is just stupid. Like I need to rework this. But you see it in a different light, and it's really interesting. So it just creatively. But I mean, how that's interesting though, isn't it? I mean, you've gone back and reworked the saga. I mean, just in terms of maybe even comparing them to Final Swing, how long do these fan films take to make?
Okay, so originally they all took like maybe like 3 to 5 months. Like that's the most, from writing to filming to post-production to posting, like 3 to 5 months for each one.
Wow. Okay.
And then Final Swing took 3 years.
Wow, that's huge, because I remember the announcement for Final Swing. You were in Times Square, I believe. Were you,
no,
that's
right? That's the Toronto version of Times Square, but that's great.
Oh, okay.
That's great that it looks the same.
And yeah, no, I remember you were. I thought it was Times Square at the time, but you were. I remember the announcement, and obviously the film only just come out, but how much did like COVID affect that? You said it took 3 years. Did COVID like screw with that?
Yeah. So like to add some extra context, like 3 years I'm counting from the start of like principal photography. So if you actually count like drafts and all this, like it's actually more. But the reason I kind of preface that is because we went through a lot, as you might know, we went through a lot of different iterations of like how many movies should be in the saga.
Oh, I do remember, yeah.
Yeah, and so like commencement was like, I swear it was just Caleb, who plays Harry Osborn, regretting the fact that he wrote himself off and wanting to do a prequel, and then us not realizing how we were going to pull off Venom yet. So this goes back 2017.
Wow, okay.
Because at the end of Vengeance, obviously it's like, okay, we introduced the black suit, you got to have Venom next. But we just couldn't wrap our heads around how we were going to do it. So it was kind of like stalling a little bit, but I like filling in those extra gaps, as you know, with Balance Act. Like I want to see as much as possible. I'd even want to go back and see the Spider Bite if I wasn't 9 years older than I was. You know, like I want to just see everything, because I think it just like helps contextualize things. And like, yes, everyone knows this and that, but it's like, this is our version. Like how does it differ? But yeah, so we did that, and then after that, it was like, okay, like Final Swing is next. Now we're gonna wrap up the saga, and I really strongly believed at the time that we still weren't ready. And so even though there was drafts being written for Final Swing, that's when Rise of a Legacy came into play as like a bridge from Vengeance to Final Swing. And I, for some reason, had this fascination with Kraven, so I didn't want to end the saga without pulling Kraven off. Pulling Kraven off. Pulling
Nice.
Kraven off.
I like
that. But yeah, so then we did that and kind of like set up Eddie Brock a little bit more. You got to see Eddie Brock in the post-credit scene, but I gotta say, like, from the very first draft of what Final Swing was, it's actually 8 years ago.
Wow. So that's a very long time.
Yeah, there might have been like 7-8 drafts before we landed on sort of where we were going with it. And we were outsourcing to different friends and people that would reach out to us. We had a lot of people actually reach out to us at the time of Vengeance saying, "Can I write your next movie?" And we're like, "Sure, take a pass at it if you want," you know. And
Wow.
we would read different versions, and I think the first version that came in was literally just a repeat of Vengeance. It was just Vengeance 2.0. Like Crime Master was a main villain again, and then Mysterio was in it, and so we'd go through different things. And at one point, Kraven was going to be the villain of Final Swing, and I'm glad it worked out the way it did, because I think Venom and Carnage make way more sense, and way more bigger as threats. But yeah, Kraven was going to be at one point, and Black Panther was going to. It was like so many different ideas flying around, and yeah, I'm really glad that it took this long, because you can only really have your finale once. And if we had ended up just doing a trilogy instead of 5 films, and Final Swing was the end of our trilogy, like there would probably be some regret of like, we didn't really pull Venom off like as well as we could have, you know?
Yeah, would I be wrong in saying, was there meant to be a 6th one in between Rise of a Legacy and Final Swing?
Yeah.
Okay, so what was that? What was that going to be about then? Because I remember there was an announcement of like sort of 3 films leading up to Final Swing. Obviously, Commencement was the prequel, and then there was meant to be another one. But what sort of happened to that? Yes.
Yeah, so that was my idea, and what I wanted there was I wanted Destiny to sort of end with Carnage kind of taking the lead as a villain as opposed to Venom. And it was just, we had so many ideas, as you can see with the final film. It's 2.5 hours long, so the idea was to kind of just do like, to spread the story out and potentially make room for other villains as well. I always thought that it'd be cool to do the Sinister Six, but it just didn't happen. But that would have been cool. It's just like, even now, just thinking about it and like logistics and all that, like it's one thing to pull off 2 villains with high demand VFX, but to pull off 6, like you're gonna need a bigger budget for that, you know, and the budgets that we operate are just way too small.
Yeah.
So there was a thought of like, well, can you have a Sinister Six without Doc Ock? And it's like, if we can't pull Doc Ock off properly, then maybe it's just not the time, you know, like I don't know. I think obviously VFX and that world are becoming more and more accessible to like filmmakers that are independent, but I don't think we're there yet to have a fully to do everything that the 2004 Alfred Molina version does. Like, I don't think we're there. You would need I don't even know, maybe like, I would say like maybe like at least $100,000, but a lot of that would have to go into that character. So it was
Yeah.
just like let's do what we know can work and wrap up this whole symbiote saga before it gets too crazy. Because with the
Mm.
Sinister Six, you're running a risk of it being like a little bit corny and um like I mean Sony hasn't even figured it out because
Yeah.
it's
No.
like
Yeah.
how do you balance all those characters and still like give everyone a strong motive and character development without it feeling like just a mess. Like you had three characters in Spider-Man 3, people said it was too much. Like you're gonna double that, you
Mm.
know? So I'm interested to see how things shake out with that. Like when we finally see Sinister Six on the big screen, how do they pull it off? But yeah, the idea was like, okay, we're Six Side Studios, Sinister Six. Like,
Oh, that worked perfectly.
yeah, yeah, six. The sixth movie should have the Sinister Six, but it was clear that it was a massive undertaking. Um, but I don't know. Who knows? Maybe a Christmas special one day or something.
Oh, okay. I do actually have a few questions towards the end about maybe the future, but we'll leave that for the unknown at the moment. In terms of the villains, though, I had a few things written down here. I loved Eddie and Cletus in Final Swing. I thought they were some of the, if not the best villains of the whole franchise as a whole, the whole series.
I
Um,
agree.
they were great. And the actors did great jobs as well. I was just wondering though, like when it comes to the villains of Final
Mhm.
Swing, were they always going to? Was it always leading to Venom? Was it
It
always
was
leading
always
to
it was always leading to Venom and Carnage.
So was there never ever like a thought of, oh, Green Goblin is Spider-Man's arch nemesis? We want to maybe revisit Norman Osborn at some point, or
Not seriously. No, no.
was that
It was
where
never.
Commencement came in to sort of fill that hole? Because there was a lot of the Goblin theme was sort of tackled there. Was that sort of the
Yeah,
point of
yeah,
Commencement as well?
100%. It was like, well, we've talked about it. We haven't seen it. We now have access to actors. I was about to say adult actors, but that sounds wrong. Actors that are older. So it's like it made sense because remember, like when we were doing the saga, everyone was our age. Like
Mm.
we didn't have access to adults. I'm sure we could have if we looked into it, but I wasn't. I was an actor for hire. Like I was coming on board. I was like, okay, what do you want to do? Like I gave input and stuff when they wanted, but I didn't write it at all. I wasn't doing any of that yet. And then when they kind of like suckered me back in for Vengeance, then I became more involved, and um, that's when we would go to casting sites, and we found Aunt May, and then from there she was friends with the guy who we got for Uncle Ben, and Uncle Ben was friends with the guy who we got for Norman, and we shot that little scene in for Balance Act of the flashback. And then we had Norman, and we had this goblin suit and mask, and Caleb, who plays Harry, wanted to do another movie, and we didn't know how we were going to tackle Venom on a budget yet. And it was like, yeah, let's do it. Let's do like a little short prelude to hold people over, and it would be cool to see and stuff. And so yeah, that was the thought. But once Norman and Harry were dead and written off from the series, there was never any thought about like let's revive them. Like I think
Mm.
at one point like Caleb like pitched an idea, and we're like it's no. But I actually would have liked to see potentially maybe not um, Green Goblin brought back in a potential sixth movie through, and hear me out here, but through Chameleon.
Ooh, that's an interesting idea.
So like we don't actually
Okay.
know, and it confuses Peter. Like I thought that would be cool, but
Mm.
no serious talks about that. That was just
Mm.
like, hey, if we're gonna have Sinister Six, but then again, Green Goblin's not really part of the Sinister Six in a lot of iterations, so that there wasn't, like we kind of went back and forth. But yes, we were always gonna have Venom and Carnage, and we held the secret on Carnage until the last. We never said that Carnage was even in the movie.
No, yeah, I
Yeah,
no,
but
I
for
remember. Yeah,
8 years, we knew that we were gonna do Carnage, but we just wanted to hold it to ourselves.
yeah, yeah. It's. I mean, Carnage worked brilliantly in the film as well. And that, yeah, that's interesting as well because it does seem natural in the way the series goes for it to go from where it does in the saga up until Venom. It does seem like the natural conclusion, especially after everything that happens in Vengeance. I feel like Vengeance is, for me anyways, a fan perspective, coming at it from a fan's perspective.
Yeah,
Vengeance very much seems like the pivotal sort of point where sort of the saga changes a little bit, and it's like, okay, Venom is definitely the end game here. But it's interesting to hear that like Norman or the Goblin was never sort of in that conversation as being the end. It was always Venom, which is interesting.
Well, I mean, maybe we take the lead from the Raimi series a little bit, but Green Goblin made sense at the beginning, or middle, but not the end. And I don't know what they're gonna do. I mean, it looks like for the game series on PlayStation, they're ending with Goblin. So that's cool because we've never really seen that in like a. I mean, I look at those as movies almost. So that's interesting. But what Cameron Dodd really wanted to do with Venom was make him a devastator to Peter's psyche, almost like almost be in shock of like how powerful he is, and that's a great way to bring the stakes up super high, because Sinister Six, it's cool, it's a cool thought idea on paper and stuff, but you're really just throwing in villains there to raise the stakes. But Venom is so powerful on his own, and then you bring Carnage in, and it's like, how is Peter gonna win? You have that feeling.
I definitely felt that as a fan with Final Swing. It was kind of like a oh shit moment. Like during the final battle, I'm like, Peter's. Nah, he's so
toast.
done. Yeah, he's done. He's done it. There's no way he's beating this guy. No, it was great. Yeah, the stakes were great, and Carnage definitely worked, I think, in the movie. So, staying on Final Swing though, or well, maybe not Final Swing, but the series as a whole. There's a lot of change with the side characters throughout the series. Specifically Peter's romantical love interest in the films does change from movie to movie. I was wondering if there was a reason for the change, or was it just scheduling conflicts? Was there different stories you guys wanted to explore?
So for MJ, it was scheduling, and we were able to just get her back for the flashback. We were able to at least get her for one scene in Rise of a Legacy, and it worked out really well actually, because I remember running into the actress for Liz, and she's doing amazing right now on YouTube. And I was like, she's perfect for Liz Allen. And I literally just like introduced myself. I said, you're perfect for Liz Allen. And that's how that happened. And then from there, I knew that it was probably too good to be true. No, in reality, it was like, we obviously were graduating at the end of Rise of a Legacy, and in the story, she's moving away. And so decided to pick that back up. There were some drafts where Liz was going to be in Final Swing and they were in a long distance relationship, but it just, for time, it didn't make sense because we already had so much that we had to get through. And then as soon as Felicia was involved back with the story, it was like, okay, we have to dive into her character. We have to dive into Eddie. We have to dive into Cletus, how Peter is dealing with college and everything that happens to him in the movie. And so it would take away too much focus. And there was a line of dialogue in reference to Liz too with Peter and Felicia that I thought we should just cut, and we did, because so all that, Liz gets a mention in Final Swing and you see her photo in Peter's room. But anything more than that was really just, I think in one draft it was like Peter's insecure because he's on FaceTime with her and there's like a dude that she's with, and he's like, what's going on there, but it was just like, we ended their dynamic so nicely in Rise of a Legacy already, and they had their goodbye that really felt like a goodbye, and to like tarnish that didn't make sense. And with Felicia, there was so much to get into with her character. Her, having the father that's in prison, and I always wanted to dive into Black Cat, because for me it was like, if we're introducing these characters in the saga, I like to see the natural progression. And so you get a couple cameos in Final Swing that, won't come to fruition. But if it wasn't the last movie, like those are the, little Easter eggs, but also like pointers of like where to go next. And so to me, it was just a loose thread to not dive more into Felicia and what she's all about. She had such a small role in Vengeance. And then once we found Scarlett, who plays Felicia, first of all, she looked just like our original actress for Felicia. And also, she was a legit actor. Like, no offense to Maddie, our original. Like, she wouldn't take offense to that anyway. We were like really good friends with her, but she has a lot of emotional scenes in Final Swing, and so you need someone that's able to do all that. And she had already worked with the actor who plays her father, just by coincidence. And so it all, I think, really worked out. I don't know. There's people that are fans of MJ, and then there's people that aren't. Obviously, she has different depictions, and like the Raimi ones, everyone says Peter should have just dated Ursula, and everyone has their ships, and like, who's Peter better with? Who's he going to end up with? And I think that adds some like freshness. Like you have all these characters in the lore. It's like, let's do as many as we can before we end the series. So yeah.
No, that's fair enough. I mean, I specifically love Felicia's story in Final Swing because
Us too.
I mean, it was emotional, and
it gave her more to do than the average female lead.
Yes, yeah, definitely as well. And it was a story that I felt ended up at the end of the by the end of the film, I thought was probably one of the strongest side characters of the whole series. So like, you guys did a great job with her story, I felt, and I think for me as well, I've spoke about this a lot of times on the channel before, but like a deep underlying sort of, I've like this fire in me, right, where I just need to see Black Cat like have a story on the big screen. It has to happen, and the fact that it hasn't happened is criminal because there are so many good stories to tell with Black Cat, right?
Yeah.
We almost got it in Spider-Man 4. We almost got it in TASM 3, and both of them got. I mean, maybe Black Cat's a curse.
You don't think she's gonna be around in the near future?
Well, I'd like to think she'd be in Spider-Man 4, but with all the news and the leaks about the multiverse stuff and Null and everything,
it's too much.
Yeah, it's too much. I'm not, like you were saying earlier, with the Sinister Six thing, like how could you incorporate all of these different characters? I sort of get that feeling about Black Cat, and she'd be great for the story, and I think this is the perfect opportunity. But yeah, to see you guys do a great Black Cat story in Final Swing, sort of, it sort of fills that hole of just wanting a Black Cat story. So
yeah, and she was almost going to be in Rise of a Legacy until we decided to make the Peter and Craven dynamic more so the focus. And then when I found Kristen, who plays Liz, it was like, she is amazing as Liz. And it was kind of the same thing with Scarlett. Scarlett like looks like Black Cat. It's crazy. And we've gotten really lucky with a lot of the castings like that. Like Eddie looks like Eddie, our Cletus looks like Cletus. It's nuts.
They do.
It's like right off the page.
They do. I think for Cletus specifically, when I was watching it, I was just like, hold on a minute, this is actually Cletus casting.
You could find better, and it was like the first people we found too. Like we didn't consider anyone else.
Wow.
And same thing with I mean, at one point, like our Craven actor, he's so manic in real life with such high energy that we're like Cletus, but no, he's Craven. And just like the red hair, like it's no one had to like change their hair or anything. And then like
really?
even our Harry, yeah, no,
his hair wasn't dyed.
No.
His actual hair.
Those are their natural hair.
Wow, that's crazy.
And even with Caleb as Harry, like he's perfect for Harry. Like it's just crazy that it was like our first choices for a lot of the major characters are perfect. Like there's the shape of their faces, their features and everything. Like you can't, it's like they were drawn. I don't even know.
Yeah. Caleb as Harry is also another one. you know, like it's weird because Caleb as Harry was one of the villains that it was sort of towards more where I grew up with, but yeah, Caleb as Harry is great. I remember watching Vengeance when it came out, and obviously Commencement as well. Caleb as Harry is great. So I really
and that was another find from me and Caleb came on the channel at the same time. So we both responded to that casting call. So he was also a fan of Action Inc. And was so passionate and he's like an encyclopedia of comic book lore, and we would talk for hours, and he like while we were shooting the saga was like really adamant that like we had to do him as Green Goblin next. And it made sense. Like that's what's really great is when you find people that aren't only just great like for the character, but have this like insane, like you use the term fire under your butt, like just this insane passion for it. And same thing with Cletus. Like he has this giant like Carnage figure that he has in his room, and he like has a fog machine, and just like it's just like it's just crazy. And that was one that we found. We found him. We were at, I don't know if you remember that vlog that we did. We went to Fan Expo, which is the big Toronto convention in 2016.
Oh, right, yeah.
Vengeance had just come out, and Caleb was dressed as like the Suicide Squad Joker. And dude in a Spider-Man costume comes up to us and tells us, "I've seen your guys' channel." And we were like, "Oh, really? Like what's, tell us about it." And he was like, "I don't know. I feel like I've seen it. I can't remember anything about it though." And we were kind of like, "Ah, yeah, right, buddy. Yeah, like you're just saying that." And then I ended up going to college like right next to his high school, and I saw him, and I was like, "Oh, that's the dude that saw us at the convention." And then over the years, it was like when it was time to cast Cletus, I was like, I don't know how strong he is of an actor, so we put him on tape, and he did a Joker monologue, and it was just like, okay, like,
that's crazy.
Yeah,
that's such a crazy story of how you guys met. That's insane that it sort of led to this Cletus casting role.
And then with really Eddie, cool. I went to high school with Tom. It's funny too because his name's Tom.
Yeah,
like
Tom,
just like Tom Hardy.
Tom Hardy. Yeah.
But yeah, we went to high school together, and we met at orientation, which is funny because we in the original Rise of a Legacy post-credit scene, the one that's on the original upload for Rise of a Legacy, because we ended up reshooting it for the remaster, but we meet at orientation for college, and that's how we actually met. We met at orientation for high school, and we hit it off like that, like right away. And then we were like best buds all through high school, but then there was moments where we would get in a fight over a girl, or like what have you. Like we got in a little like scrap at a party once, like nothing crazy. And then it was like years go by, and it's like time to cast Eddie, and I was like, God damn it, like he's perfect for Eddie. Like we have that dynamic in real life already, and he looks like Eddie, and it was just like one of those you can't make it up. Like we have that friendship, but then you also I could just feel that like, okay, but a few things go wrong, and then all of a sudden we're worst enemies. Like it was perfect.
Yeah, and it definitely shines through on the screen, because I think one thing that I will say Final Swing does in particular, that I feel like quite a lot of fan films, just in general, don't even have to be about Spider-Man, but sticking on the topic obviously, one thing that Final Swing does that I think a lot of others don't, not very well, that's harsh, but I'd say maybe slightly not as good, if that makes sense, is I think the chemistry between some of the actors and the way, obviously that's partially down to the way it's written, but also one thing that, like you even said with the Felicia scene before with her father, that one scene just before his death is I don't know, there's a certain aura about the way the character, it's very professional is what I'm trying to say. It seems very like, yeah, okay, this relationship's believable, and it's being conveyed very well through like just visually, but also like through the performances as well. So that's one thing that
that whole thing, that whole little part of the story felt like another like eureka moment, because it's like we had come up with the idea of Eddie going after other criminals, and then Felicia was involved in the story, and it's like, well, her dad is in jail, so you know, her dad would be a target next. So like that whole when we came up with that was like, oh my God, this is perfect.
It comes together.
Yeah, yeah, and it's just like it's like when you miss out on those opportunities because it doesn't feel right. Having Felicia in Rise of a Legacy and her story intertwining with Craven, you look back on that like, thank God that didn't happen because it's just, it wasn't natural, it wasn't a fit, and now it paves the way for this. So
No,
yeah,
that's amazing.
we've felt that way about almost everything. Like while we've been doing the movies, like in any time where there's like, I don't know if this is working out or like all these conflicts of scheduling and this and that, and me and Cam would always assure each other that like it always ends up falling into place in the end. Like we don't know how we're gonna get there, but it always falls into place.
Yeah, and I mean, quite clearly it did. I do have one last question about Mary Jane Watson. This is something that I've always sort of had on my mind.
Oh, I know what you're gonna say, but go ahead.
That I always feel like, was there ever a plan to do the MJ and Peter story throughout, like sort of how you built up to Venom and Carnage? Was there ever a plan to do the same sort of thing but with Peter and MJ? Maybe obviously having Black Cat and Liz, you know, appearing there. Was that always the end game, and was it just like sort of unfortunate that you could never get to sort of that point?
It was, but at the same time, I'm really happy that it didn't work out that way because I personally felt that like at least in Vengeance, it got better in that one scene after with Rise of a Legacy, but in Vengeance, I don't know if it was just because at the time Sydney, our actress, was inexperienced or whatever, but I never felt the chemistry for that. And then and then our world kind of opened up. I was meeting all these new people like that were amazing on camera and stuff like that, and it was more of a product of that than anything else. But yeah, in the, you know, if you're a Spider-Man fan, it's like Peter and MJ are endgame, but I mean, like I said, like people don't want Kristen Dunst's MJ necessarily ending up with Peter, and the Raimi, everyone loves the Raimi series. So, you know, like we could see a world where, or we were imagining like maybe MJ comes back into the fold, but I don't know if it was going to be with the same actress. And I know some people that are amazing and natural redheads, just like Eddie and Cletus, but it felt, let's not do that. Like if we're gonna recast, we always felt like it needs to be for a strong reason. And for Black Cat, we needed someone not only who could bring the emotional side of it, because all she really did in Vengeance was go on a date with Harry and then break up with him. Like there wasn't anything to that. And then the physical side, like, and our actress was just the most natural. Like I even got her in a couple of my own personal channel videos. Like she's amazing at fight choreo. You saw her like punching those pads on the boxing ring. Like she has strength to her.
Great opening scene, by the way, for the character.
Yeah, did you see the rhino on the
yeah.
But yeah, like it was just, and what she does, she works in the film industry actually, primarily now as a grip, and so she's lifting heavy objects and stuff. Like she's kind of I don't know if this is like sexist or whatever, so when we did our premiere, you know, like most girls or whatever, it's like, oh yeah, like, you know, whatever, like do your thing. She's like in there, like she is setting up like the tripods and like the heavy stuff. She's lifting, she's badass. Like she is, you know what I mean? So like, it was just like, it makes sense in that case, but I don't know if it makes sense to bring back MJ as a different actor, because with each installment, because our ecosystem of like actors and the network, because I was doing a lot of like television gigs as well, where I was meeting people. That's how I met the dude who plays Dr. Connors, and I'm sure there's a few that I can't even think of, but I would meet these people and it was like, okay, our horizons are being expanded. Why go back to people that aren't necessarily the best on camera when you can go to these like actual actors? And Scarlett's one of those. Like, she has a lot of experience. So, yeah, I can't remember how we got on that, but
yeah, was it sort of a case of like potentially it had to be the right story for you to really consider that recast, whereas for Black Cat it was like, okay, the right story's right in front of us and we've got this great actress, let's just move forward with what it makes the most sense instead of trying to force an MJ Peter
and the same thing with Liz, and the same thing with Liz. It was like, we have this amazing talent in front of us, you know, like, Peter's in high school. How many high schoolers end up with their high school sweetheart?
No, it's true. It's true.
Like, it didn't. If Peter's meeting MJ in 11th grade or something, is he really going to marry her? And like, you know, you have to sort of think of it from like our universe version, and that's where you bring in some real life experience. And you know, they have Mayday in the comics, but it's like, it just didn't make sense, and like, for all the other reasons I said. And so yeah, like, I think that we brought enough of the comic book side of Felicia to the character, but also put our own spin on it, to where, but you end off the movie going like, I don't know if they're going to end up together or not, but like, I'm kind of rooting for them.
Yeah, that's exact. I mean, from a fan's perspective, that's exactly how I felt at the end. It's like oh, well, you know, you don't know if these guys will stay together. I mean, you'd look at Black Cat and Spider-Man traditionally in the comics, and it doesn't always end well, but, you know, for this version, you know, you could definitely see it happening, and you definitely...
And each story has its own arc.
Yeah.
And so, like, this particular arc, like, they are gravitated towards each other, and they help each other through a lot of emotion, and they're there for each other. Peter really needs someone, especially when what happens to Aunt May happens, and she needs someone when what happens to her father happens, and they both bond over the loss of Harry. And so, like, the way that they're gravitated towards each other for this particular story just makes sense. Whether or not they're together in 2 years, like, that's kind of irrelevant to this story. But you are kind of going like, oh, it'd be nice to, like, you know, think that maybe in a couple years we, like, look into the future and, like, they're together and they're, you know, and maybe not, like, not everything has to be like, you know, MJ comes back, you know, because it's like MJ kind of like did Peter dirty, you know, in our movies.
Yeah, I guess so, kind of. Yeah, I mean, when you really think about it, but I really like that though. That's
I don't know if Peter would forgive her, you know.
No, probably not. I mean, from a story perspective as well, there's one thing that I'll just touch on before we move on to the next thing. But like, I just want to touch on that. That's one thing that I think a lot of stories, even professionally in Hollywood, they get this wrong on a fundamental level. Is that, you know, you see it a lot in rom-coms. A lot of, I think, relationships and romance that's built up or built into a story and maybe a subplot, it doesn't always make a lot of sense. It's always kind of contrived because it needs a romantic subplot. Mm-hmm. Whereas, you know, you've got to have characters that need each other for a specific reason. They've got to fill a part of each other, of each other's lives, and I feel like that was done well in Final Swing with that. You know, Peter and Black Cat kind of sort of almost parallel each other in a way.
And I think if you think of it from the perspective of the aftermath of Harry's death, that ends up inflicting and influencing Peter's love life, because if Harry had never died, you know, MJ wouldn't have broken up with Peter. So, like, that was the straw that broke the camel's back, because MJ and Felicia, we establish, are friends, and that, you know, she's on board until that moment. And so then Liz fills that role because he's in high school, and she's there for him until she's not. You know, and then just like with Peter's life, he can never catch a break, so something is always going wrong, and it's like he needs that anchor. And Aunt May is that anchor as a maternal figure, but then when she's not there, you know, and I think speaking on like the forcing, I think they're forced. I mean, we might be too soon to tell, but I think they're forcing MJ into future installments of the MCU. I don't think they should be so quick to throw her in as a main character, but you know,
No,
it's
I
influenced
totally
by
agree.
it's influenced by her
Yeah.
power and all that.
I mean, I would totally agree with that. That's a I could rant for hours on end about how. I mean, I love Zendaya. She's a great actress.
Yeah.
But like, you know, she should be at the, you know, at the very most sort of maybe even hovering in the background of the story.
Yeah.
Maybe being a figment of what Peter's life once was, instead of trying to break the solid ending of No Way Home straight away. But that's just why
there shouldn't be scheduling conflicts with Dune 3 so that she can film Spider-Man. I mean, she should be on set for 5 days and that's it. Like, she shouldn't be filming all summer. You know what I mean? Like,
yep.
It does, when you hear that she's going to be busy, like, it's like, doing what? Like,
yeah,
it's too soon. But that's a perfect example of like real world influencing things that aren't story first. And when you can, so that's the struggle of like finding the balance of putting the story first, but then also like the real world circumstances of Hollywood. And I mean, you could argue that there's no bigger female star right now than Zendaya. So of course you're going to have Zendaya as the female lead again.
No, exactly. You have the opportunity to have Tom Holland and Zendaya co-star in a movie. It's like you don't pass up on that opportunity, especially if you're a studio, right? I mean, I also heard as well that it has its own issues, but that Euphoria season 3 being delayed again is also partially down to, as well as writing issues, but it's also partially down to Zendaya's scheduling, and it would come around coincidentally at the time when she needs to film Euphoria. She's filming Spider-Man, and then she has Dune 3, so it's like, how big can this role be? But anyway, yeah, I digress. Speaking of the fan films then, okay, here's a question. This might be quite difficult. Apart from Final Swing, which one was your favorite and why?
Rise of a Legacy.
Okay, that was easy. Apart from Rise of a Legacy, are you just going to keep going backwards?
Yeah. Vengeance.
Oh, really? Okay. Vengeance, and then... so you just sort of... They got better as they went on for you?
Well, yeah, I mean, Commencement we did after Vengeance, even though it was the prequel. But chronologically, I would say basic... Yeah, sort of, yeah. Because I felt like we learned new things every time and just were able to make it better. And if this wasn't Final Swing, you sure as hell could expect the next one to be better. Like, that's just sort of the pattern that I've seen and felt. And over years, if you're not getting better, like, I mean, you're doing something wrong, you know, like, so I would say Legacy was my favorite until Final Swing, for sure. And that was all, by the way, we told ourselves that, like, we're like, I think I even said in a video when Rise of a Legacy came out, I was like, this is the best one by far until Final Swing. Because I just knew that, like, we weren't going to settle.
Yeah. No, that's fair. I mean, you can definitely see in Final Swing as well, that you guys had a lot of fun making it. You know, the quality, it definitely does increase with every single one that comes out. So yeah, that's great to hear. In terms of some of the characters, we mentioned Black Cat, maybe even Spider-Man. You said it's the final one. Have you spoke to Cameron, the team, since about maybe revisiting at some point in the future? Is there anything on the cards, a spin-off, anything adding to this beautiful fan film world that you guys have created over the last almost 10 years now?
That's a tough one.
Oh, so there has been talks, but you can't say.
It just depends on what you would consider talks.
Okay.
Because we're always talking. We're talking.
That's
Me and you are talking right now. It
I
doesn't
guess
mean something's gonna happen.
No, I guess you could say is there maybe...
I mean, Jamie Lee Curtis just said never say never on another Halloween movie for her. So, like,
that's true.
You know, I wouldn't. We wanted people to want more. I think if you can leave people wanting more, you're in a good spot. So I would hate to overstay our welcome. But if enough time passes and and things make sense, and I'm talking 5 years at least, then I guess, never say never. But I think Cameron is pretty adamant that he doesn't think he would want to do another feature length.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, from where Final Swing ended, it always felt like, okay, as a fan, I think I'd be very sort of content if this is the end and we don't see these characters again. If you guys don't ever come back and shoot something, whether it's a short film, a series, even a feature, whatever it is, I'd be totally content. I think a lot of people would say that as well, because the story sort of, it does end, right? It's very much an ending chapter.
And we gave Peter a break finally. Like, that was big for us.
Yeah.
Because his life is so hard that it's like, let's end it on a note of hope. That his life is going to be all right, and we know, that it probably won't be. But at least we can end on this, contentment of like, things are gonna fall into place. Like,
yeah, and that's sort of a theme, I think, of the whole series. If I'm not mistaken, it's sort of like Peter throughout the whole series is very much, he's always. I mean, it's in the remaster for this, the Spider-Man Saga. It's literally called Balance Act. It's right from the start. It's literally a balance act the whole time, and he gets this break in Final Swing. So it's always good to see it sort of round off. But when it comes to Six Eye Studios and Cameron Dodd and everything, do you have anything else lined up with them that's not Spider-Man related? Like, because you guys clearly work really well together. You're obviously great friends, I'm assuming, as well, outside of filming and everything. Have you got anything else lined up with them in the future?
We have ideas, and I know he's working on a short film, a horror film, right now that I'm not involved with because I'm living in LA. But I have ideas, and it depends on, I guess, what distribution ends up looking like in the next little bit, because with YouTube it's like direct to you guys and the consumers, and obviously we have bigger ambition than just YouTube films. We want to be able to like have a film that plays the festival circuit and maybe gets distribution, and eventually get to the point where our films are in theaters, and so it's just a matter of balancing basically like what ideas are good for YouTube, and sometimes we won't know until a project is done. But I definitely have a couple original scripts, and it's just a matter of logistics, budgets, all the nitty gritty. Like the couple scripts that I do have, they on paper, when you read them, seems like they would require a large budget. So it's a matter of, do we go head first into those right now, or do we do an idea that's easier to do on a smaller budget? I mean, what's happening with Terrifier is really inspiring to me, and how the first one was like $35,000, and it's like, oh damn, that's a super small budget relatively for Hollywood standards, and look what it's grown into. So the idea is to do original characters and storylines, and the same is said to be is for Cam as well, but just depends on if there's some crossover there. I know Caleb wants to come to LA, and so we'll see what happens. I'm doing a original film with another YouTuber. It's called Round Trip to Reality. It's a little bit of like almost like a Back to the Future, but instead of time travel, it's parallel universes, and it's a coming of age comedy, and I play like the bully, sort of like the character in Back to the Future. The name is blanking on me right now.
Biff, I think.
Biff, yeah, I'm
Biff,
sort of
yeah.
the Biff. And so yeah, we're gonna be shooting that, I think, in the spring.
That's cool.
Yeah, and so I don't know where it'll go yet, but I think worst case scenario, like, we know that YouTube is always there.
Yeah.
So.
That's the beautiful thing about YouTube, right? I mean, at the end of the day, it's always there. That leads me very nicely onto my final question for you today, which is, of course, if you could play any character or if you could have any role, like maybe even describe an original character, if you could play on the big screen, it can't be Spider-Man. Who would it be?
That's fine. If we're going into, I mean, it's a natural progression to say like a comic book character, right?
I guess so. You don't have to say comic book character, but if there's one particular one that you'd love to play.
I have a couple that I would really love to play. The first one, I've just been told a lot that I have a big, juicy Nightwing butt. And so that would be cool. Not just for that reason, but I'm just saying, like, I've been told it quite a bit. And then I'm really keen on Plastic Man too.
Oh, Plastic Man, that's sort of like more of a C-list sort of character that would be quite cool. I mean, the good thing with those types of characters as well is there's sort of a little bit more, like with Spider-Man, it's like very specific. But you can sort of add your own nuance to characters like Plastic Man, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So you could.
I think it'd be cool to originate a character that hasn't been done before, but it has been done in comics. I mean, in Nightwing's case, he's been on tons of television shows, but I know that they're doing a Teen Titans film, and I'm sure I don't stand a chance, but that would be amazing.
Yeah. No, I mean, all the best for you in your future acting career. I hope it goes well. I'm sure everyone else is looking out for you when it comes to future movies. Let's hope we see you in plenty of them. But thank you very much for coming on today, Mark. It's been brilliant.
We got 2 minutes left on here, so
we got 2 minutes left on the Zoom. Okay, perfect timing. Where can everyone find you on the social medias or Twitter, Instagram?
Movie Man Mark on pretty much everything.
Movie Man Mark on everything.
On everything.
Well, there'll be links in the description anyway, but Movie Man Mark on everything. And I'll leave a link to Six Side Studios in the description as well. And for you guys who have not maybe seen the Spider-Man Saga or the series in general, or just Final Swing, if you want to check that out, I'll leave a link in the description to that as well. But once again, thank you very much for coming on the podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on.
Yeah, it's been great, and I've been watching your stuff for a long time, so knowing how big of a massive Spider-Man fan you are, it means an extra lot that you enjoyed the series. And you hear that, people? He's a big fan, and he gives it a seal of approval. So
thank you very much, Mark. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.